us, and we can provide you with the Zoom link. So we'll go ahead and get the meeting started with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we'll follow that with a prayer by Delegate McKay.
Heavenly Father, we just come to you today. We thank you for all the blessings you have afforded us, Lord, and all the needs have been met. Lord, I just ask that you put a special blessing upon this meeting, thus it be done in order, be conducted in peace, but more especially closed in harmony. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Delegate. Under old business, we had House Bill 244, which was the zoning change requested by the Board of County Commissioners. We're just going to hold that till next week. So we'll move on to new business. And has Earl Stone?
Earl Stoner is here.
There he is. Earl, we just wanted an update on COVID-19 vaccination and how things are progressing in Washington County.
Sure.
About 5 minutes.
You got.
Thank you. Turn it over to you, Earl.
Okay.
I have the timer running.
So
he does actually. He's not kidding about that.
So we are working in partnership, obviously, with Meritus Medical Center. It's a collaboration where the health department does a lot of the eligibility verification and gathering of the list and coordination with individuals. Then we send that that information over to Meritus, and they schedule and administer the vaccine. We at the health department are also vaccinating congregant living facilities, IDD and DD facilities and individuals, and also independent living individuals in those campuses that weren't touched or reached out to by the federal pharmacy program. One of the things with the that we're also doing is really trying to mobilize some things and get vaccinations out to the communities, especially our historically marginalized communities of color, ethnic population centers, and also those areas that are geographically isolated, such as Hancock, Keysville, Boonesboro. We have already done the Robert W. Johnson Community Center down in the predominantly African-American community. We did that on the 12th of February. We have Boonesboro set up for March 1st and March 15th. We actually added another date there because as soon as we opened it up, it basically sold out, so to speak. Hancock is, I don't know the exact date, it's mid to end of March. We're working with the town and with some physicians in the Hancock area. And then we are working also with the Islamic Center of Hagerstown and the Church of the Nazarene for the Hispanic population. Our current priorities, especially with the limited doses that we're getting, are adults 65 and older, again, congregant living, IDD and DD individuals. And also there are two special populations that have basically 100 dose a week set-asides. One of those is for education, and the broad definition of education is public and private schools, childcare, individuals, facilities, and also higher education. And then the other set aside is 100 doses that Meritus gets and has to set aside for immunocompromised individuals. We currently are averaging about a little over 2,100 doses a week. However, if you really break that down and take a closer look, the first 6 weeks, and this is Meritus and the health department. The first 6 weeks, we averaged about 2,592. But over the last 5 weeks, we're down to about 1,599, just over 1,600. We've had a couple low weeks where week 7, the health department received no doses. And then week 9, Meritus only received 100 doses. So specific to the health department, we are currently, as of 2 weeks ago, we've been told we're going to be getting 500 doses a week. If you look at the averages of what we had been getting, the first 6 weeks, the health department alone was getting a little over 1,200 doses. And then the last 5 weeks, we've been averaging about 300. So far, it's Washington County residents only. First doses, we've done about 12.5% of the population. And second doses, we've done about 6.5% of the population. Demographically, obviously, the thrust of the individuals who have been vaccinated are the 65 and older. About 54% are 65 and older, and then the next largest is the 50 to 59 at just under 13%. If you look at further demographically, if you look at race of those vaccinated so far, about 92.7 have been Caucasian, 3% African American, 1.3% Asian, and 3% other. And then ethnically, only about 1.2% have been Hispanic population. We currently have about 20,000 individuals, basically seniors, that are on the quote unquote waiting list, waiting to be vaccinated. There are several other providers in Washington County. Martin's Pharmacy, both of their locations, I believe, get 100 doses a week. Family Healthcare of Hagerstown, which is a federally qualified health center, also gets doses per week, only a couple hundred at the most. And then the state is in the planning stage for a mass vaccination site here in Washington County that will be totally state operated, at least that's what we're told. And they would like it to be open by the end of March. And then lastly, outreach and education. We're planning a PR campaign similar to what we did with the behavioral health campaign and the masking campaigns that we rolled out throughout the county. This obviously will be targeted on awareness, education, and really looking at combating the vaccine hesitancy. There's going to be a special focus in that, again, on our historically marginalized populations. We also send out weekly vaccine updates through our JIC, through the county, and Meredith is coordinating some community informational sessions where they go out to churches, at the mall, and some other areas where they have their residents, their physicians there to answer questions and talk to individuals about COVID and about getting vaccinated. And then lastly, assistance for seniors obviously is one of the big things that we've really tried to focus on. We've established a hotline through the JIC, really through the county, to assist senior population with signups. Basically, in a nutshell, it's a hotline that they can call and leave a voicemail, and then an individual calls them back and takes them through the process of signing up. So far, everybody that's left a message has been had a return call and has been assisted. That's about 1,700 individuals so far. And then we have an ongoing collaboration with the Commission on Aging, where we have an extra dose standby list with them. So when we are running clinics, toward the end of the clinic, when we determine that we're going to have extra doses left over, we have a list coordinated with the Commission on Aging where we call senior individuals and have them come out to be vaccinated, so we're not wasting doses. And then they also assist with, the Commission on Aging also assist with helping individuals sign up and transportation to various sites that we're conducting clinics at. So in a nutshell, that's where we are.
Thanks, Earl. Appreciate the report. So why has the number of doses per week gone down instead of up? I would think as they're ramping up, you would get more doses and not less.
Well, yes, that in theory, that would be the case, but honestly, I can't answer that. We're at the mercy of the allocation that we receive from the state. We typically request a couple thousand a week. Typically, we have requested about 1,500 doses just for the health department, and about anywhere from 2,700 to 3,000 doses to be used for Meredith. But we find out our allocation typically by the end of the week, and unfortunately, we don't have any say in how that allocation is determined.
Okay. All right. Well, I personally want to thank you and your staff for the way you've handled everything. Every time I've called there, it's always professional. You've always gotten back to me with the answers that I've, asked and all. And I think overall, you've done a really good job handling the pandemic for the county. So I want to thank you on behalf of residents.
Thank you.
I know there's always bumps in the road, but that's to be expected. So anyone else have any questions of Mr. Stoner?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Earl, how are you first?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you for this information.
You're welcome.
Just want to, if you could, I was taking notes feverishly as you were talking. Could you repeat the percentage? You had it broken down regarding vaccinations. I got the 3% African Americans. What were?
For race,
Yes.
92.7 Caucasian, 3% African American, 1.3% Asian, and 3% other.
Okay. Well, I think we can all agree that that's a significant discrepancy there between those two racial groups, African Americans and Caucasians. Do we have a plan? Well, first, do we have an idea why only 3% African Americans are or have received the vaccination? Are they maybe afraid of it or just haven't done it yet?
Yeah, I think it's several factors. One of the factors is that we are thus far, especially with the limited doses, we're only in phase really 1 now, 1A, 1B, and 1C. And frankly, we haven't gotten really to the professions that we see the African American communities and frankly the historical communities of color. They are in those essential service type professions. So that's one. The second you hit on is vaccine hesitancy. There's a historic hesitancy just in general with minority populations as it relates to the medical profession, a long history of going back all the way to the Tuskegee experiments that have really tainted the minority view of the medical profession. And then the other one I think is just access. And one of the things, that's one of the reasons why we're really trying to mobilize and take the vaccine out to the people, so to speak. So our plan in moving forward is to continue to do that. As we hopefully get more doses in the future, we will schedule more vaccines out in those historically underserved communities. But also the other approach is through our education and awareness campaign, really looking at getting what they call ambassadors of the community, trusted individuals. We're talking to the local churches in those population centers, and we will begin a process of really getting out and piggybacking on what Meritus is already doing and doing some educational sessions with churches, community centers, and those sorts of things. And then obviously with our PR campaign, having some of those ambassadors being spokespeople for those respective communities.
Okay, great. One more question, if I may, Mr. Have you noticed any change in the data regarding deaths or hospitalizations since we've now started the vaccines? Have those numbers been stagnant? Have they decreased, hopefully? Or
Well, our numbers have been going down.
Okay.
Again, not saying that we shouldn't vaccinate, because we absolutely should. But I think what we're seeing right now is a combination of several things, not just the numbers going down because of vaccination. We're coming down off of a significant high, and we're looking at seasonality of the virus, just kind of like cold and flu season, and also behaviors. I mean, people are wearing masks more and they're distancing more. So a combination of those factors. I think what we'll see is once we get into those general population or in those essential service organizations and businesses, that's when you're really going to see the impact of vaccines.
Okay. Thank you, Earl.
You're welcome.
Senator Corman.
Okay, thank you. Earl, real quick, and I know I reached out to you at one point, and this was sometimes, and maybe it's because of, I guess, with your partnership with Meritus, when the state puts the numbers out, just so we're understanding them right, like they'll put out numbers that show like allocations, and they'll show that Meritus got a certain amount, and then they show the health department. but it's like a huge difference. So are like some of the health department numbers maybe we can count it as Meredith's allocation?
Yeah.
But the last report I saw a couple of days ago had Meredith's like they had received like 17,000 or something like that, and
Yeah.
the health department only received like 2,700. And then the percentage of them actually being, the shots in the arm, so to speak, were vastly different. So can you speak to that at all?
Yes, the first part of that is that there are some discrepancies in the numbers. We actually are having a call tomorrow with the individual that does the statistics and puts those things out. And it's not just specific to us. There are several other health departments that they have the numbers kind of screwed up. But secondly, yes, we have been giving doses to Meredith. The thought behind the partnership was that Meredith in given that their position and the resources that they had is better positioned to really do this kind of work. And so right from the get-go, we struck that partnership with them with the understanding that we would be floating some of our doses that are allocated to us over to them. And there's a process that you go through that, again, is challenged, to say the least, at the state in keeping track of, which is part of that call tomorrow.
That's good to hear. Hopefully, maybe you can get back with us. Maybe some of the stuff can update, because the last one I saw with health departments had Washington County, unfortunately, as like I think it was. I don't want to speak exactly because it's not right in front of me, but I think almost dead last as far as allocation, what you guys are receiving, and then the percentage of them being administered was dead last also. Hopefully, there's some sort of discrepancy there that can actually makes that's not actually the case. And I wish you luck. Then hopefully, speaking to whoever you're talking to tomorrow, they can get that rectified. Because for everything you're saying, doesn't sound like that's the case. We want to make sure that that's, you know what I mean? So
I may reach out for some help.
Please do. And Earl will help you however we can. I know that Mary was able to help get you some of those numbers you spoke of earlier. So please let us know where we can help out.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Delegate McKay.
could we get Krista to send the link to Commissioner Klein, Commissioner Wagner, and also Commissioner Kiefer? They seem to can't get in. Jeff is trying to get in, but can't get the audio. So maybe we could send the link again.
I will send the
Yeah, it
link.
should have already been sent to them, but
I will send the link again. Commissioner Wagner was in and Commissioner Klein is currently in.
Yeah, but okay, that's fine. It said something about an audio issue. So anyhow, okay.
all right.
Trying to keep it
Senator
open as
Edwards.
much as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Earl, I just want to thank you for all the effort you've put in, things we sent you to check into. We appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Anyone else? All right, well, Mr. Senator, we thank you and get back to work.
Thank you. It's never ending.
You're
Yes.
right.
Thanks for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate the update. Thanks. All right, the last item we have on our agenda is the Atlantic League Professional Baseball presentation. So Senator Corbin, I'll turn it over to you. We have,
Sure, and,
due to the late hour, you kind of hold it to about 5 minutes or so,
Would say about 5 minutes. So yeah.
and then we'll take questions.
Yeah, no, we'll do this quickly, and then I want to give an opportunity, possibly Mr. Bowen and Mr. Bolton are on the line here with us as well. Look, in a nutshell, urban improvement project we just got wrapped up with it. It's been a great opportunity for downtown Hagerstown. We got to continue to build on that opportunity. We got to move forward. We got to look for things that are big, bold, and will be able to help carry us forward into the future. And when I talk about that, we're talking about the possibility of a multi-use sports and event center downtown. We've talked about this many times in the past, and we have an opportunity here to really seize an opportunity, I think, unlike any time before. And what this will provide would be the investor confidence that we've been looking for things downtown. We see this much in the way of UIP 1 being transformational and multifaceted, that it would include, not just the facility itself, but also has the opportunity to, one, transform the housing opportunities in the core, raise the housing stock, and increase the tax base, both for the city and the county. And remember that while there's a differential, city residents pay county taxes also, and so the county would benefit much the same, just as the city would. There are two large projects on the horizon that will complement each other until we change downtown. These are residential projects. that would work in concert with this multi-use and sports facility. The continual revitalization of community neighborhoods. The state has already partnered with and continues to support the efforts in the historic African-American community in Jonathan Street. DHCD and Secretary Holt have been here multiple times working on some things down there, as well as, through some continued infrastructure investments in the city. And the most obvious would be the significant private investment throughout an area of town where it's so much needed. But what we need to provide all, as I said before, is investor confidence and the Catalyst project to kind of put it all together. With that in mind, that's why I wanted to provide the opportunity this evening. We went in the past last month, myself and Mr. Bowen, Mr. Bolton, and met with the county commissioners along with the city council with the exciting announcement back in January that the Atlantic League of Professional Baseball had awarded conditional approval to award its team in Hagerstown. And we wanted to provide the same courtesy to the delegation as we afforded to the city council, as well as to the county commissioners to kind of hear about this and hear about this opportunity. Not only want to discuss this opportunity, but we want to talk about obviously the facility itself. As you're aware, we lost the Suns, but we've known that for a long time. We've been planning for that. And quite frankly, the opportunity we have today is much better than we ever had in the past. The proposed partnership here provides an opportunity like never before. We're talking local ownership. We're talking about ownership made up of established local people who have a track record in our community, being committed to this community, and to have an entity that has a desire to be a part of it. At the same time, again, the main objective here is the ability to have an anchor for downtown investment, economic opportunities, and job opportunities. The goals have always remained the same throughout this project. It's the continual revitalization of downtown. It's to raise the tax base, as we talked about before, so that way we can bring in revenue to put towards all the priorities that we have, like public safety, fire and rescue, things of that nature, roads. But in order to bring that revenue in, we need something that's going to help raise the tax base to generate those revenues. We need more people in downtown with disposable income to support and grow the retail restaurant industry and support the housing markets. All these things together is what we need in order to achieve that would be the investor confidence. Eric Menzler is the president of York Baseball, of York Revolution. He was unable to join us this evening, but he's been on one of the calls with us in the past. I know with the county, he did a great job of presenting the economic impact perspective. Like I said, unfortunately, he's out of town, but Eric's background, he was the economic director for the city of York. He's now the president of York Revolution. He says it best that, they're not in the baseball business. They're in the hospitality business, and baseball just happens to happen about, 70 times a year. They're part of the Atlantic League, just like this opportunity is. They had a lot of the same challenges they heard in their community. But again, and we're very clear, this isn't about baseball. As Eric will say, he says he sounds like an evangelist because he was there before and he's seen the other side, but it's all the other possibilities. There's an opportunity to partnership with the Hagerstown Community College. Dr. Klauber has expressed interest in that. There's opportunities for concerts, youth leagues, sporting events, August-Toberfest, Blues Fest. I mean, it goes on and on. Basically, to have a community entity in the center of town that would just continue to bring in foot traffic and support, all those things that are central to having a thriving downtown. It would be the central point of downtown. You guys are all aware there's been multiple studies over the years. Some of you guys have been involved in them. Some of you have not. There was a Ripken study in 2012. There's the current Stadium Authority studies. You can look at the studies. They all show the same things of how successful these opportunities are. But you can look at the reality of the other communities that have experienced this. There's Fort Wayne, Indiana, Chattanooga, Tennessee, High Point, North Carolina. As we talked about earlier, closer to them, York and Lancaster. They're all the same. These all have produced massive economic successes. Eric has a map that you guys should have received. I asked us to email earlier some information out that shows in York they've had $100 million of private investment to date around this facility. They got $50 million more on board. As we're entering this post-COVID world, hopefully, we need something that's ready to move. We need something ready to move quickly. It's shovel ready, and it's going to live a good shot in the arm here, so to speak, to spur some economic development, some prosperity in Washington County.
Mr. Chairman, the timer went off. I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir. This project happens to provide the largest post-pandemic economic recovery infrastructure project west of Baltimore. It's something our community should be very proud of, and it's an opportunity that we should not let slip by. So, look, I'm going to turn it over to someone I know you guys all are familiar with. A man who's been involved in our community for many years, and our community is so much better because of him. But I'm gonna allow Mr. Bowen an opportunity to speak to you guys, and then we want to introduce Mr. Frank Bolton as well with the Atlantic League. So, Mr. Bowen, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Senator, and thank you all for having us this evening. My interest in minor league baseball occurred June of 2019. I was visiting my college roommate, Frank Bolton, who you will meet in a moment, with my wife, and he and his wife and the four of us went to the Long Island Ducks baseball game. Frank owns the Long Island Ducks. He's also the CEO of the Atlantic League. We went to the game, and at that game, I just realized what a facility like this could mean to Hagerstown. It's different than the stadium we now have, Municipal Stadium. It's totally different. Everybody was there having a great time. We were seeing high quality baseball. And I said, wow, this is something. The only other experience besides a Municipal Stadium that I've ever had is places like Camden Yards, which obviously we can't afford something like that or wouldn't make any sense. Anyway, so I got very intrigued about it. Frank said, well, you ought to go to York and Lancaster. Their communities more sized, more like Hagerstown, and they're a little bit smaller in terms of numbers of seats and size of facility. And so Senator Quarterman and myself and a couple of employees from the city of Hagerstown met Frank at both York and Lancaster and went on a tour, and again was even further blown away by York in particular, because it is a smaller version of what Frank has, and it's more appropriate for us. So at that time, of course, the Suns had been up in the air for quite some time, but they were still in place. So I kind of feel like the stars lined up on this. First of all, I'm very close friends with Frank Bolton, who is the CEO and co-founder of the Atlantic League. So we had an in there, which was a nice opportunity. Frank said, "Are you familiar with the Maryland Stadium Authority?" And I said, "Well, I've heard of them, but I've never had any experience with them." He said, "Well, they are about the best in the business." And Frank's owned, I think, a dozen or so minor league baseball teams over the years. And he said they are about as good at designing and building stadiums as anybody. Well, I did a little checking. The chairman of the Stadium Authority is a fellow named Tom Kelso. He and I have been friends for 25 years through the petroleum industry. And so I called Tom. In fact, he was probably my last lunch before COVID hit in late February, early March last year. We had lunch in Frederick, and I said, "How do we go about doing this? These things are so expensive." And he said, "Well, the truth of the matter is," he said, "communities can't afford to build these things. They're wonderful assets. They create tremendous economic development, great quality of life opportunities for the community. But the city of Hagerstown, county commissioners, or Washington County couldn't possibly afford it. So what you ought to do is think about doing it the way that they did the funding for Camden Yards." And what they did was they floated bonds, municipal bonds, which get sold. Then that creates the funds to build the facility. And then the way the bonds get paid back is through money that was allocated from the lotteries. The Maryland Lottery goes in to pay that off. And there's been $20 million a year going into that program to pay off Camden Yards. And now that's starting to wind down. I think next year it goes to 15.7 million, then down to 13, maybe 2 years after that. So there's excess money coming out of lottery that has been going into stadium projects. And we were hoping to be able to pick up some of that. So we're not asking for somebody to write us a check for 40 or $50 million, but to give us a couple million a year for a long period of time, which in the size of the state budget is not, I don't think, prohibitive. Anyway, I think it's an incredible opportunity. The more I've talked with Frank and the more I've learned a little bit about baseball, and I know just a little bit, he knows a lot. There are two things that he has said to me over and over and over again. You got to right size your stadium. Don't make it bigger than it should be, because you want to keep it full. You want to keep, you want to have events. You want to make sure that it looks like it's full. You don't want it half empty. But the biggest thing he said to me is the key to him and his involvement with the Atlantic League and I guess other teams is local ownership. He said it's got to be owned by locals, people who are entrenched in your community, who are going to stay in their community, who are not going to have any interest in anything but making this a community center. I think the guy from York, Eric, indicated to us that they have, in this year where they had no baseball games because of COVID, which is 70 events a year, home games, they had over 200 events in their facility. That's what I'd love to see in downtown Hagerstown. This would be incredible. So with that, I'd like to introduce Frank Bolton. As I mentioned, he's my college roommate, which is why I like him a lot. No, we've been friends forever. Anyway, he probably knows as much about minor league baseball as anybody in the country. So Frank, if you'd fill him in on your background a little bit and talk about the Atlantic League.
Sure. Thank you, Blackie. Again, my name is Frank Bolton. I'm the owner of the Long Island Ducks Professional Baseball Club up here on Long Island, New York. I founded the Atlantic League after owning 2 Yankee minor league teams and 1 Kansas City Royals minor league team. And by far the best thing I ever did was sell them and create the Atlantic League of Professional Baseball. We're an 8-team league right now, going to add 2 more teams in Staten Island and Pawtucket, Rhode Island next year, and then hopefully Hagerstown in 23, along with Salem, Virginia. So we've had 42 million fans come through our gates in 24 seasons. The team up here on Long Island, like you said, been successful. I've been very lucky. We've had over 8 million fans come through our gates. You know, this whole restructuring of minor league baseball, you might have seen or read about it, but the affiliates have now become licensees, and the independent leagues are now becoming what they call Major League Baseball partner leagues, of which we were the first ones designated. You might have also read about Major League Baseball testing new rules out, and they are doing those new rules through our league. In fact, this is Sports Illustrated. I don't know if you can see that. Hopefully you can. And this is our ballpark in Charles County, Southern Maryland, the Southern Maryland Blue Crabs. Hopefully maybe somebody has been to a game there. And by the way, it's going to be one of the major vaccination sites for COVID vaccinations. Anyway, we're very proud of our league. I guess in full disclosure, I should tell you that Blackie Bowen was the best man at my wedding, and we will celebrate our 45th anniversary. So I thank Blackie for standing in there that day for us. But, you know, just to talk about Blackie a little bit, when we graduated from Villanova University, I said, Blackie, you got to come to New York with me. I'm going to go to work on Wall Street, which I did. I ran Smith Barney's government bond department globally and UBS's mortgage-backed department globally. But I said, Blackie, you got to come with me. We'll go to Wall Street. We'll kill it. We'll do great. And he said, no, I'm going home to Hagerstown. And I said, come on, you don't want to go back home to Hagerstown. He said, yes, I do. I love Hagerstown. And, you know, he's proven that over the years. And I've become a fan of Hagerstown's as well, because I get to visit Blackie and go to the Airport Inn and have dinner there and go to, you know, play golf in Hagerstown. So I've always followed Hagerstown. And, you know, when the ballpark has been, you know, a non-functioning ballpark for quite a time, and baseball teams have come through. Frederick at one time was played in Hagerstown. Bowie at one time played in Hagerstown, and everybody else got their new ballparks. And Hagerstown was one of these pass-throughs. You know, from my standpoint, you know, I'd like to support Hagerstown and Blackie's initiative, and to that end, we would welcome Hagerstown into the Atlantic League of Professional Baseball, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have, knowing that there's time constraints here. So thanks again for the opportunity today.
Yep. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. Does anyone have any questions?
I have one further comment, very briefly, if I could. One of the things that is very important to appreciate about this opportunity, the Major League Baseball has downsized their minor league system from 160 teams to 120. They're not about to do any further expansion in this time frame. They're getting smaller, not bigger. And the Atlantic League has made a decision that they're going to add 2 more teams next year, 2022, and 2 more teams in 2023, and then they're not going to add any more. They're finished. That'll be the size that they want to be. So if we don't get funding this time, it ain't going to happen. I mean, so it is time critical. I know it's a tremendous amount of money, but it would be the most incredible thing. I'm excited about what's happening in downtown Hagerstown with University of Maryland's arrival there, which I was against. I was totally wrong. That has been a great positive thing. With the investments that have been made by private sector, the Maryland Theater, the library. You put this right in that neighborhood, which is what we're talking about, it will be spectacular. If you haven't had the opportunity to go to York, Pennsylvania and see their facility, you need to do that. Think about that sitting in downtown Hagerstown. It will blow you away. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Delegate Parrott, you had a question?
Yes. More of just a comment. I just want to say thank you to Blackie and to Senator Corderman and to Frank, especially Blackie, Frank. You guys, especially Blackie, you've really invested in our community a whole lot over decades, and we really appreciate it. We wouldn't be in this position unless you were spearheading this effort. And of course, Senator Corderman, it seems like the bill you have really requires no local money at the city level or at the county level. And I guess one question I do have is, if this were to move forward, you know, I was the city engineer at the city of Frederick, and they owned the Keys. And every year the Keys would come in and ask for more money for, you know, renovating different things. How would that be handled? Would you be able to do that on your own as the league, or would that be coming back later on to local governments?
Well, one of the nice opportunities of having been so close to Tom Kelso, Tom said one of the biggest pet peeves that the Stadium Authority has is they go in and help them build these facilities, and then a few years later they're back for another $5 million or $10 million or $20 million to renovate. What he said is you got to structure the rent in such a way that a substantial portion of that money goes into a CapEx fund, so that when you need to buy all new seats, you need a new scoreboard or whatever it may be, you can do those things, those major capital expenditures, out of your own pocket. Come once to the legislature, get the money, and never come back. Keep it going, keep it first class. And we think that it can be sustainable to do that.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what we've done here on Long Island. We've created a sinking fund as part of the lease, and we call it the Ballpark Improvement Fund. So right now we're in the process, because we're in our 21st year, of replacing the rails and doing a lot of concrete work. And we can just go to the Ballpark Improvement Fund, and that money's there because we've contributed to it over time. So you're planning ahead, because we know that things, they go through their useful life, and then you got to replace them, whether it be an HVAC, or whether it be the rails, or whether it be the seats, or like you said, the scoreboard.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that, Delegate Parrott, and we have some language in the bill already, and we're going to look to narrow it even more so, because that's the message here. We're asking for the Stadium Authority to float the bonds. That way, there's no that doesn't affect anything locally, because obviously, if you would take a bond out of this magnitude and ask the city or the county, that would affect their bonding capabilities. So that is very helpful, obviously, for our local governments. And not only are they going to float the bonds, but then to repay the bonds using lottery revenues. And part of that in exchange of is basically the facility will be paid up front. But then again, we're not going to come back and ask for anything additional. That's going to be handled locally. What I mean by that, as far as that CapEx fund that Blackie spoke about. And so we have some language in there already, and we're going to make it probably even a little more stronger, just to appease anyone that had any additional questions. We feel that as a very positive, especially for the taxpayers and the citizens of Washington County, that the goal here is to hopefully be able to have this opportunity, and then not be able to be coming back to obviously the taxpayers for anything else in the future. So that is the plan here.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions?
I got a couple more things here, Bill, real quick. The bill itself, I think most of you guys have seen it. It is Senate Bill, if you haven't seen it already, 926. I know I've sent it out to you initially. It pretty much has that basic background I just spoke of, as far as asking the Stadium Authority to issue the bonds, asking the lottery to support the bonds, and then for basically the entity to take care of the project from there on out. We feel, again, as Blackie said, and it's been said earlier, this is a tremendous opportunity for our community. It's an opportunity. I think it's not going to be available anymore. We're looking for support in this bill. I put this in with the bill, and Senator Edwards was kind enough to co-sponsor with me in the Senate. Delegate Cham actually cross-filed it over in the House, but when the bill came out, bill drafting, they got it back to us at basically the 11th hour, and there were some things that needed to be addressed in it. So we pulled her bill just because the Senate bill is a little more refined. But in that spirit, I'd like to make a motion that the delegation would support Senate Bill 926 to be able to have that support going forward when we go to our hearing here on March the 9th.
Second that, but I would like to open up to discussion a little bit. One question I had was where the site is proposed, and I know we talked, Senator, that is not going to be locked down in the bill. It could be somewhere else if another site, if we find something that makes this not a usable site. But it probably won't. It'll probably be in this location. But there are existing properties like the Herald Mail, and then of course the Frederick County offices are there. How would that be handled in this bill? Would the county get reimbursed for their building, the Herald Mail?
Yeah, so I think, and those are great questions, Delegate Parrott. And the first part, yes, the location was actually removed. And in the bill that originally went in, we had the location defined. But we removed that just because there are still some unknowns, not just some of the property things you brought up, but until we get the final, report back from the Stadium Authority on the phase 2, if there's any other issues or concerns, whether they're environmental or, right, we're not anticipating any issues, but figured to leave that flexibility, if so, would be needed. I think your second part, though, I think a lot of those would be handled in the same manner as the private entities. I mean, I think that those entities, as far as the county, you referenced the county's building, the county asked the same question. And I said to them, I don't view the county building any differently than any of the other private properties that are there. That would be a process that would have to be negotiated, and some sort of fair agreement would have to be reached in order to move forward on that. So, I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse, so to speak, because that is obviously the location that we're looking at. But again, I think you have the car wash there. There's a laundromat. There's a Herald Mill parking lot. There's about 6 properties. But anytime you have these projects, there's always those logistical things you have to work on. In York, for example, they had 27 properties, I believe they had to put together. So I think there's a path there, but I think they're all equal as far as, I don't think, one's going to be treated better or worse or anything than the other. I think that's a very fair opportunity for everybody. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay, good.
Yeah, thank you. And
Yeah, cool.
I guess before we get to the vote, I just want to say I'm supportive of this project the way that it is now. I know there's been a lot of work over the last couple of years to get us to the point where we are right now. And I'm very appreciative of that. I think this could be a benefit to our community, especially since the way it's handled right now is that there is no local money, no county money, no city money. It's all from the Stadium Authority. And when I was working with Senator Chris Schenck several years ago, when this first came up with a different site, we were thinking the best way to finance this would be through the Stadium Authority. That didn't work out at that time, but I'm glad to see that coming back, and hopefully this works out this time.
Yeah, and I appreciate bringing that point up, Delegate Parrott, because as I've had some conversations, I think with other folks, so you bring up a good point. We're asking for support is how the bill is defined as far as the Stadium Authority and the lottery, and that would change at some point. That's a different conversation, and that's a different agreement or disagreement. So again, I think as you really eloquently put there, is we're just talking about this particular path, and this is the path we're looking for support. And I appreciate you indicating your support there.
All right, there's a motion on the floor in a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I vote no. The motion passes.
All right.
All right.
Well,
Thank you all. I appreciate the conversation. Is there any other business?
No, I just want to say thanks to the delegation for putting this together. Thank you, Mr. Bolton. Thank you, Mr. Bowen, for taking time out of your day to meet with us. And thank you again for the opportunity you're presenting to Washington County.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, if there's no other business, is there a motion for adjournment?
I make the motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All right, thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good night.
Good one.
Bye-bye.
Have a good evening.